minutes late. And we're live. Oh my God. And we're 2 minutes late. Oh my gosh. Hello, you guys. I'm so excited. And FYI, for anybody who wants to go live, something I learned, you have to look at the camera and not at the screen. I'm like, if you ever looked at your lives or gone back and look and you feel like you're looking down, it's because you're looking at the screen and not the camera. So hello, you guys. I feel weird because I'm not looking at you, Angie, but I'm looking at this camera. Oh my gosh. All right. Hey, you guys. Welcome to the TUF Woman Table, episode 54. Episode 54, you guys. On the countdown to episode 100. So as you guys come in, say hey. Let me know where you're coming from. Let me know how you're feeling tonight. Who is excited for this? I am. And I love, Angie, that your show is called the Inner Phoenix, right?
Infinite Phoenix.
Infinite Phoenix. Okay. I love that. You know what's funny is before I go into this, I've met a couple other people, and actually part of my brand is a phoenix, but I have met other women, and phoenix seems to be a theme that resonates with a lot of women. And I love that your story is all about how you are constantly rebirthed through the burning of who you thought you were and the life you thought you were meant to be living at that point. So I think this is going to be a really fun episode. But you guys, before we dive into this, before I get my intro again, just say hey as you come in. Let me know where you're coming from. As always, make sure to ask questions, interact with us. If you catch us on the replay, hashtag replay, and let us know where you're coming from. If you're watching over on YouTube, let me know you're watching on YouTube. If you're on Facebook, let me know you're on Facebook. And if you catch anything valuable from this, if you find value in these shows, please make sure to share us so that we can continue pushing out there, so I can continue bringing amazing women to you. I have had the absolute honor to have 54 amazing women on this show, and there is no stopping the flow of women that will continue to grace this amazing stage. So without further ado, I'm going to drop into my epic intro, which is going to, I'm getting super excited already. And then I'm going to introduce my epic guest, as always, and we are going to dive into this epic episode because I'm telling you, every episode gets more epic as we go along. So, without further ado, hello and welcome to the TUF Woman Table. This is the table where I invite some super badass tough women like Angie here to take a seat, join in on the conversation, create some badass dialogue, and share her amazing story, you guys. And I'm really excited for this story. Her story is yes, she is the infinite phoenix. All right. So at TUF Woman, I believe that all women have the power within themselves to live life authentically, free from fear, confident as shit in who they are. Okay. I mean, like Lizzo confidence, and empowered as fuck to go out and get success, whatever that might look like to them. So I share this belief by championing tough women like Angie here who have walked through the fire, right? Walk through the fire.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Risen from the fire, felt the fear, faced adversity, and kept pushing through it all. So you guys, women who have just gone through it and come out on the other side. So women who now live the life they want as the woman they were created to be. Women who own their story so that other women can own theirs as well. Because as we all know, and as I always say, when you give yourself permission to own and share your story, you give someone else permission in the same breath, you guys. Mm. So without further ado, and without any more stalling here, I would love to introduce my guest, Women's Wellness and Soul Activation Advisor.
Oh, yay!
Right? Women's Wellness and Soul Activation Advisor, which I'm going to be interested. I can't wait to hear about the soul activation part. So, Women's Wellness and Soul Activation Advisor, Angie Sinclair.
Woo! Hey, nice to be here. I'm so excited to have my podcast virginity burst. So, we're going to burst it right here.
Actually, this would be a vlogcast if we're going to go that way. This is a vlogcast. But hey, this will one day be a podcast, probably.
All right. So how do we do this? What do I do?
Tell everybody about who you are, and then we're going to drop into your story. And you guys, this is why I love this story. Before we get into it, I want to explain a little bit. When women come on this show, and for any women who might catch this on the replay, who's coming onto the show or has been interested, this show is intuitively based, like completely intuitively based. I don't have a set question. I pull my questions from the woman's message. So I always encourage every woman that on the show, like, your story is your story. I have absolutely no idea what that looks like. So I always encourage the women to share it. So, but before we do that, I always like the ladies to explain what they're doing right now. And because everybody's journey is a little different, and it's good to know what they're doing now so that you can understand how they got to where they are. And Angela says, hey, ladies. Oh, Angela, did you get over your bridge? Answer me that. Angela had some push from the universe. So, but so tell Angie, tell everybody a little bit about what a women's wellness and soul activation advisor is, and who do you serve specifically, and how do you help them in that capacity? And then we're going to just dive right off the cliff into your story.
Oh, sounds great. Okay. So, as far as career base goes, my career is really in admin and accounting. However, as you can imagine, that, some people have an immense desire that just lights them up.
Numbers.
Well, I have a different desire that lights me up. So currently, I'll just say I'm in the depths of, like, smack dab in the middle of Canada. And we're in the depths of winter here. So I think it's going to get down to like minus 30 tonight. Yes, minus 30 Celsius. So yeah, you just kind of, so I have a sweater on for good reason. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I went to a seminar with a friend of mine and had no idea what to expect. It was called the Fearless Woman Summit. Now, doesn't that sound absolutely freaking awesome? What it was a bunch of inspirational women from all walks of life across the world that would be telling their story and what they're doing to inspire other women. And it was specific to women. I mean, Fearless Woman Summit, right? And that sparked a little bit of, that hits me, that speaks to me. So I actually met up with a fabulous lady there, and we kind of birthed my business, the birth of Shell to Shine, which is really, that's the umbrella of my title, Women's Wellness and Soul Activation Advisor. So the business is called Shell to Shine, and the entire mission is to take women from the shell that they've become to shining as they are designed to. So when I came up with that, it's like, that's perfect. That's exactly, it embodies everything. And it's more than just one aspect. It's to look after the mind, look after the body, look after the soul. So that whole encompassing aspect as far as looking after oneself. Now, I didn't start off that way. I often start off some of my ads actually saying, do you find yourself feeling like you have cinder blocks chained to your ankles in the middle of the ocean? There's no raft in sight, there's no boat, you can't see land, and you are struggling to keep your head above water. That was me. That was me about 16-ish years ago, just really struggling to figure out who I was, what I was supposed to be doing in life. And I think at that time, it's kind of coming in about mid-story, but just to kind of give an idea, that's where my kind of the middle of my pain was coming from. But the light bulb kind of went on at one day, and it's like my life flashed in front of me, and it's like, this is unless you do something, this is your life. So clearly it didn't resonate with me. So I decided to do something. So, but that's where I like to start off with. But as you and I both know, that is not where my story started. So shall I dive right into that?
I was about to say, so this is, and real quick, so Angel said, not without my driver. You will get there. You will cross that bridge. And she says, I love the name of her business. Yes, I think that is phenomenal. Like Shell to Shine. I love yours. There's another woman. She's a women's wellness coach, and she talks. Her name is Pearl. And she talks about helping women find their inner pearl. So I'm always like, I love it when these women have these really great spins on stuff. I'm like, this is great. Like helping women come from that shell. And I like that you described that, because when I've always described it, and it's very similar, that treading water and that like, oh my God, I'm just like doing everything I can to keep myself from drowning. I always imagined things in my life when those things were happening coming out of my divorce. It felt like I was just being constantly hit with a wave, just a wave. Like, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just pounding me into the ocean floor. And that's how it always felt. And it's like, they tell you not to fight the wave. And that's how I felt always. But yes, my favorite part, tell everybody the story behind the scenes, because this is where the power is at. So where is the start of your story?
Well, the start was when I was 17. I was 17, and you know what? We had a close-knit family. Small town, growing up in the country, and we did a lot as a family. There was 4 of us kids, a mother and father, so it was a complete family unit. We had the dogs, the cats, we had the horses, everything. And at one point, we moved the family moved to another, again, a little bit bigger, but still very, very small town. When I was 17, the next sibling was 15, so my sister, and her name was Ramona. And whenever we would visit or go with friends, we even had some crossover friends. We did everything together. And people would say, oh, let's go to Angie and Ramona's. It was always the 2 of us together. So like that didn't mean we didn't fight, but you know what, we were tight. Funny, just a sidebar there, but just when I said that, yeah, we did fight. I remember one time way beyond before this. Yeah, we fought because I still have the evidence in my leg to prove it, because she stabbed me with the pencil and I still have the lead in my leg to prove it. So yeah, sibling rivalry, fabulous. Yeah, so I was 17, my sister was 15. It was February the 13th, so we're just almost coming up on an anniversary of this. And they were her boyfriend and the boyfriend's friend were traveling, and it was winter, obviously, February, and they were behind a snowplow, and the driver was trying to pass, and doesn't even remember anything after trying to pass, because the snow was blowing up, and they ended up hitting head on with a motorhome. There wasn't much left of that car afterwards. Was not much left. In fact, there was stories running around school before I even knew about what had happened that everybody in the car died. At that time, everything was just going crazy. You would see pictures of the car, and there was not, you could barely recognize that it was a vehicle. The boyfriend got out of the car without much of a broken collarbone, or a fractured collarbone maybe, and a broken wrist. I'm not sure. The driver, the leg was broken in a couple of places. He had to have a steel rod put in. It was I mean, you could actually see the bone coming out of the skin. So yeah, lovely. Hope you didn't eat just recently, but
But it's okay.
Can laugh now. My sister did not have a seatbelt on. She hit the dash and I guess went under. So she didn't get thrown from the car, but she smashed the dash. In fact, I think there might have been a dent in it and or crushed, or I'm not sure. But my sister ended up with a completely smashed face. Her jaw was broken, cheekbones were broken. She needed some pretty massive facial reconstruction. So she was in the hospital, I think, for a week. And about a week, and she had her mouth was wired shut. So our family loves to eat, so this was excruciating to be able to only eat through a straw. In fact, she wanted French onion soup one time so bad, and she was like, but she can't have the cheese, she can't, having to sip up just the broth. And I was like, yeah, I can't imagine that. Although that might be, that'd be fantastic for weight loss. So so I don't want to try that though. Not going down that road. So that she was about to have her wires, the wires taken out of her jaw about a month later. But she went to a conference. It was a youth conference. We were involved with the church. And she went to a youth conference in a city about 3 hours away, to Regina, Saskatchewan. And, she had been complaining about headaches. But I mean, kids, not surprising. You smash your head on a dash, you're going to have some residual effects, right? Mm-hmm. She fainted at the conference, and she never came out of it. She was in the hospital for about a week. I still remember we had a little theater in town. One theater. We were lucky to have that. Where I had taken my smallest sister, who's 9 years younger than I am, to see Dances with Wolves. So there's aging me a bit. We were watching Dances with Wolves. Had to choose the longest movie in history, I think. But and being in a small town, the owners of the theater knew who I was, knew who my folks were, knew our entire family. So the owners had gotten a call there, and so they had called me out, and I got the call that, Ramona's fainted. We're going to go up there because she's in the hospital. So I think my grandma may have came up and stayed with us for a little while at that time. And at the end of the week, we went up I think we went maybe with friends, or somehow we got up to go and visit her at the hospital. And at that time, Mom and Dad had the discussion with the doctors that she likely was not going to come out of a coma, that any brain function, should she come out of a coma, would be non-existent. So imagine your mother as well. Can you imagine having that news and making that decision to then take her off of life support? To make that, yeah, see, my chest is, it's so, and I have children now that are older than that. My oldest is 25, turning 26. My son's going to be turning 23 shortly. My youngest is the age that I was when I was going through this. And I cannot ever imagine having to make that decision to do that. I had to struggle with that for quite a few years. You always wonder, what if? But if you play that game too long, it's going to destroy you. After that, I remember our family had the funeral ceremony videotaped, and I would watch that tape over and over and over again. And I think it was just to prevent the closure. It was hard enough seeing her be lowered into the ground, but it was that last piece that I could hold on to. Yeah, she wasn't alive during the video, but it was just that last piece of that was surrounding her, the ceremony of her life. It was a huge funeral for the town. It was just a huge shock to our entire town, and to our family. And from that moment, our family became dysfunctional in the simplest forms. We didn't talk about it. I tried my best to kind of keep the peace with everybody. Mom and Dad dove themselves into work, and I became a caregiver for the rest of the and it's not about blame. It's not anything to do with that. They didn't know what to do. You don't get a manual for parenthood, never mind the death of your child. So we all did the best that we could. Hindsight, we should have all been checked in with a therapist like ASAP. We didn't. They were involved with the church. They had a lot of support there, but I think we needed more. We needed a lot more from that. We needed to know how to deal with that, how to cope health in a healthy form. So that in itself, I guess I kind of turned inward and started what would start out to be kind of my way of helping others, right? So that, I think, is where it all began. It kind of took such a curveball that you can't even imagine, but you can't change the past. So
no, you can't. I can't imagine as a parent having to do that. And I commend you for being able to talk about it, because even now that, I feel the emotion in it, and even now but I always commend women for when they can show up and share that, because that's not an easy thing. And I think what these situations show us is they shake us up, and they show us the areas that we have to grow in, or maybe the areas that we are just not aware of at the time. And I firmly believe these are also ways for us to down the road going like, listen, that should have happened, but like you said, this allowed you to help other people, because now when people come up against a situation, you're like, hey, you need to go find a way to work through this, or you can help them work through it as well. So, for everything that is awful in life sometimes, and like you said, I can't imagine. My daughter's 14 and my son's 9, and I just the thought of that, just like that hurts my chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, it these things shake us up, but it's like you said, we burn through these things, but we rise again. So I would like to know a little bit more about how that kind of how that kind of spiraled you into, you said there was that next piece. How did that end up evolving into that next piece?
Well, I think at that point, when you have that happen as a family unit, your view of what any relationship should be is now forever changed. And with that, my view of how I felt for myself, I mean, I was 17, so your self-esteem is, I mean, some people are lucky and blessed that they have like a strong self-esteem. Yeah, mine wasn't. And so this happens, and still very much searching for, what's, so this happened, now what? So I went into partying a little bit, went out to probably some parties that my parents still have no idea about. Oops, sorry, Mom.
What? What? Friendly get-togethers.
Yeah, no, I was at a friend's house, honest. A friend's house that was drinking. Yeah. At least, you know what, I didn't get into the drug part. Unfortunately, like my sister and my brother went a different path, and they have their own stories to tell. But that was only the first, I mean, as harsh as that experience was, that's only the first knock about that I had. I had a few more rounds to go in the boxing ring. So in between my 17th and 18th birthday, I don't know, I think it may have been spring. I don't know when, but so I was at a party, and I the guy that was there, he poured me a drink. Swear to God, to this day, I'm sure there had to have been something mixed into that, because at that point, I mean, I was a seasoned drinker. I'm not like now where a half a glass of wine and I'm out cold. No, I was more seasoned than that. And I don't even think I finished the drink, and I was like kind of floating in and out. I could barely walk. So guy leads me into the bedroom. Friends are outside, they're watching TV or whatever the hell they're doing. I don't know. But I was kind of in and out of coherence at that point, unable to push this guy off, and completely took advantage of the situation. I don't like the word rape because it's so harsh. I mean, it wasn't like a physical assault in that, I was battered or beaten, but it was still an assault on me because I did not agree to that. That's not what I had signed up for. And at the end, he was saying, well, don't bother saying anything to anybody because those friends out there, they're going to vouch for me. So you're going to be the girl that wanted it for popularity. So I went out, tail between my legs, and bawled the whole way home, feeling like a used piece of trash. And I had to see this person around town. And even at my job that I had at that time, I ended up having to serve him. Not able to say anything because what am I going to say? Make a scene there? It's just like it. And plus, who's going to believe me? I did tell a couple of people, and I really don't know to this day if they believed me, and because nobody knew what to really do, I don't think. But when I told my mom, she had asked, "Are you sure you didn't, you weren't just fooling around?" So, and I say that only because that's what had happened, but she didn't know what to do either. Like, I mean, may not have been the best choice of words. Okay, fine, but I'm not about to lay a whole lot of blame. It happened. I just knew that was then building my resilience and my independence. Just another nail in that cake. You know who is going to look after you? guess what? You're it. You are going to look after you. So you would think, okay, so there's wave number 2. No, there was more. There's more.
I'm going somewhere with this. Don't worry.
So get married, have kids. You think you have, really at about 5 years in, should have been over really at that point. We fought. Nothing got resolved. It was the mother-in-law was like super controlling. I joked, but it felt so real, where I would say, I swear to God, I gave birth to those children, but it really doesn't feel like it. So, there was that much influence from his side, and he wouldn't take my side. He wouldn't try to understand. At one point I had said, can we not just move away and start our own life? Well, the response was, well, who would look after the kids? I'm like, I don't know. We as parents, kind of, I don't know. Seems like a logical answer, but I guess not. So, my last child, before even knowing I was pregnant, I knew our marriage was going down. And we talk about being a phoenix. Yeah, it wasn't going to rise. It was going down, and it was going to burn, and it was going to stay dead. But I found out I was pregnant. So fine. I had her, which actually turned out being, I call her my miracle baby. Not that I couldn't have children, but the fact that I found out I was having excruciating pains throughout the first part of the pregnancy. Abdominal pains and nothing was helping. I found out by an ultrasound that I had a huge ovarian cyst about the size of a large grapefruit in my uterus. Sorry. And what I found out is that the hormones from being pregnant actually dissolve that. So being pregnant could have very well saved my life, because if it would have burst, it could have caused some huge damage or worse. So it was a really good thing. And she's yeah, I love my kids, but really her and I have the closest relationship. It's yeah, it's really nice. But after she was born, I would say probably about 4 months afterwards, I kind of had the discussion with my husband at the time that, this is not working. It's not going to work. And at that time, he thought that, it was just a postpartum depression, and I was going to snap out of it and either change my mind, or something was going to. He went to the doctor's house personally to ask about, what to do to kind of fix what was wrong with me. So,
oh my God.
So, yeah, that didn't happen. I did go on antidepressants, but which probably the worst antidepressant you can possibly go on. But when it was, that was part of the thing, is that at that point, I felt I was then at that point of feeling like I was in the middle of the ocean. There was no rescue. Like, that was going to be my life. And that was when the light bulb went on. It's like, if you do nothing going forward, this is what your life is going to be like. And I had to be in that state to do what I did next. And that was to leave. That marriage was so dead, there was no reviving it. It wasn't, there was verbal abuse there. There was belittling. I just I definitely didn't feel any passion. There was zero spark, nothing. But so that decision to leave, pretty much, I had to be in that state of numbness in order to do that. Because even now, I kept a lot of memorabilia from, like, I kept my journals from up till then. I kept, letters, everything. And I tear up because, of course, leaving, then I would get letters from my kids saying, I missed you, Mom. I love you. And see,
It's okay. Hey, safe space. Like, this is safe space.
yeah, I don't go in to read them very often because I know usually the effect it will have, but I still have the emails from my oldest daughter, and that's the part that kills me. I knew ever since leaving that it was the right decision. Not once did I ever think that it wasn't. What kills me is the fact that I basically destroyed the relationship I have with my kids, my two older ones, because they don't have much of a relationship with me. But I know that there's a lot that I don't know. I was kept in the dark about a lot of things. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that there was a lot said about me. Maybe not by the dad, but definitely by the grandmother. I have zero doubt whatsoever. So that's why I'm so thankful to my partner now that has a great relationship with, or at least a amicable one with his ex, that they can talk about stuff. Yeah, so that's what crushes me. But again, like I said, now I don't know how I would make that decision. I know I have it within me that I can make any decision that will be for the betterment of my well-being, regardless of how tough it is. I know that I've come through way too much to ever go back to that space again. I will never let myself be a lost little person again. Not ever. And that's what kept me going after that, is to prove that side wrong, because they thought I would come crawling back and I was never going to amount to anything. And yeah, that I was going to just fail in life. So every day walking to work, miserable, cold, whatever, being splashed on, didn't matter. I was bound and determined every single day that I have to make it, because otherwise I did this for nothing. So, so that would be 1, 2, 3 waves. Should be enough, right? 3 strikes.
Yeah.
No, thick German hat. No, I'm, there's got to be more, right? So, yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, but I did meet somebody really wonderful, and we were together for about 6 years. Man, we packed a lot in those 6 years. A lot. We went all over the place. I remember the first time we went to Punta Cana, he had said the joy for him was seeing my eyes pop as I saw from the plane, looking down at the water and seeing the different colors. And it was phenomenal. And we packed more in those 6 years than most people do in a lifetime. And he was just one of those boisterous souls that if he was in a room, you knew he was in a room. Like, he just big and bold. He really he believed in me when I truly did not. And he fostered that beginning of my self-confidence and learning to be, to try new things and experience life and see that there's a whole wide world out there. That came to a very abrupt end. Um, it's almost 10 years ago, about 9.5 years ago, October 3rd. Well, I guess it would have been like October 2nd is when it kind of started going south. You get a flu and you don't realize it. You don't think anything of it. Although now with the viruses we have now, yeah, you best march yourself off to the hospital. But he missed work. He was a business manager at a successful car dealership. And so he missed work on Saturday, which that was rare. But he really felt like crap. And later that day, or actually into the evening, he had actually suggested, I think we better go to the hospital. So, because his heart was starting to hurt. And so whenever you mention that at a hospital, you get in pretty darn quick. So, and I remember the nurses coming out a couple of times saying, you realize how sick your husband is? I mean, we weren't married, but I mean, might as well have been. Just easier to just go with it. I'm like kind of looking at them blankly. I'm still thinking, it's a bad flu or whatever, just do what you have to do, fix it. And, I'll be here and just let me know when he's feeling a little bit better and I can go in and see him. Well, I haven't a couple times and I'm starting to what's going on? I'm not sure I'm following where this is leading here. So they decided to transport him from one hospital to another because of this specialty that it was. And they said, you can go in the ambulance or, you can meet us over there. I'm like, no, I've got the car here and, what am I going to do? Leave it here and then how am I going to get back? So I drove over and I was waiting there. And I was waiting and waiting. And then I heard them call code blue. I was like, I had this sick feeling. I'm like, not believing, but knowing that something was going to happen. They had just arrived and he had passed away in the ambulance. So they couldn't figure out what was, why, and they have to, it's automatic here in Canada, at least in Manitoba. I'm not sure about other provinces, but if a patient dies within 24 hours of being, in a hospital or transport, it's an automatic autopsy. So they did that, and it wasn't until a couple days later we found out it was meningitis that he had passed away from. Not sure where he had contracted that, but he had problems with kidney stones, and we were actually at one of the hospitals within the week before, so we could have contracted it there, or he was a very boisterous guy. He was, in close contact with tons of people all day long. We really don't know, and it doesn't really matter because it doesn't change the fact that it happened. So that was kind of the last real big blow, and it was interesting. I don't, I had a really good friend of mine, Rose, her and her husband at that time came to the hospital and insisted that I go stay overnight. But I had went to go and see the body afterwards. They gave me the choice, but I'm like, well, if I don't go see him now, I'm going to regret it. And it wasn't wonderful. I mean, it was like the last moment And I mean, of course, when they're resuscitating, I mean, it wasn't him. It wasn't who I knew. And I could just, every time I would close my eyes later for days, all I would see is that vision. And I can still actually, when I think about it, I can still see how he looked at that point, and it wasn't pretty. Wasn't pretty. I mean, his tongue was out, and it just was because they had a tube down his throat, and it wasn't lovely. So um, that that hurt. I mean, it rocked who I was, and then I had to kind of rebuild my life as a single person at that point. We'd gained a lot of mutual friends. Um, I had to force myself to go out to some of the same places that we would go to, and I would have panic attacks. But I knew that if I didn't keep going, if I didn't keep trying, there'd be less and less that I would venture out to do. So I would just keep trying. I went to one of the clubs that we went to, and we went dancing, and I had to leave, like go outside for like some fresh air for like a few times. And eventually it got better. I never liked eating by myself, and I had forced myself to go out for a nice dinner one day before getting my nails done, and it was I would say mid-scale restaurant. I had an appetizer, had a full meal, a glass of wine, and I was like, okay, I can do this. I almost left, but I thought, no, we're going to see this through, and I'm gonna do this, and just prove to myself that I was able to just kind of do some things on my own and find out who I was as a soul person, and not have somebody attached. And that's the entire round of kind of that climb. I climbed to find out who I was. And that brings me to when just even a couple years ago, attending that Fearless Women Summit and seeing the countless women come up to the stage and being able to share their story and inspire other women. And that's my purpose, because I refuse to believe that I went through all of that to not have a purpose. I believe with all of my heart that it's meant to better somebody else's life. Us as human beings are relationship based people, and especially women, we are a community, and we are building this empire of women to be stronger. And I believe that we need to share our stories, just like you said. We need to give each other permission to share, and it's not for attention. It's purely authentic sharing, so that for the purpose of somebody else connecting to even a bit of that experience, so they can relate and be able to say, okay, I feel like shit right now, but I've seen other people go through this and worse, so I can get through it. That's my mantra. And from that point was the birth of helping people.
That is beautiful. Like I have nothing other to say than that is beautiful. And I love how you talk about there's no way I've gone through all this to not have a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's like one of the most amazing messages to put out there is like you go through what you go through because that's your purpose or it's part of it. And I don't believe anybody's purpose is to go through pain in life, but if you look at your story and then I look back at all the other women's, there's always those pieces of pain that just they shatter you, and it's like the phoenix. They burn you. You burn underneath them, and the next piece is, well, how do I rise? And then life happens. All right, something to break the. But, yeah, it's how do I rise from that? And it's funny because now we're almost to the end of this. I felt like I was meditating through most of this. I'm just like,
did I bore you?
No, that was, there's so much there. And I feel like you're already on that path of inspiring other women, and it's like you said, none of this is like a glory thing. I think that it's just important that we hear, and this is actually the one point I think I've never made on my stories, because at some point, I think what resonates with most women and what resonates with myself, and I feel like what you've mentioned here is we heard someone else share their story. And something inside of us goes, oh my God, like if they can make it through that, then I can make it through it. And it's like sharing your story, you give somebody hope. And, and life can be really dark sometimes, and especially being a woman. And I'm not here to knock down the male species, but the male species. But that part, like where you were talking about your husband saying, well, maybe you have postpartum depression. We just need to fix you. Like, it boggles my brain how when women are really going through something, obviously we have the problem. Mm-hmm. Well, there's something wrong with you. We must fix you now. And so, like, what? That's another story. I will not go into that. But yeah, what I think I've taken away most from your story, and what I hope other people will take from it, is that we have the choice to utilize these burnings as a catalyst for us to rise. I think the thing that gives me hope in your story so much is that you could have laid over and played dead. There were so many, and I feel that on such a deep level, because there were so many points and times in my life where I'm like, man, I could just lay here and this could be it. Like, this could be it. But you made the choice to continue getting back up. And that if ever there's any messages I think needs to be put up, is like, listen, you can choose to lay here and die in this, or you can choose to get back up and say that is not the end. Like, this is not the end of it. So I think that's probably my favorite part of your story. And the one thing I've seen is that you guys make that choice to get back up and rise, and not allow what you've been through to be your death. Because until you die, you have a lot of life,
Absolutely. There's a beautiful, there's a beautiful saying, and I've posted it several times. It's by Marianne Williamson, and it's, what is your greatest fear? And that is one of the most pivotal things that I've ever heard and read. It's so true. And it's by sharing your story, you are then allowing others to share theirs. And by keeping it to yourself, you're doing everybody a disservice. Why do you think you went through what you went through? I mean, it's just, you're there to extend your hand and help another person up, instead of, just watching them suffer.
Well, and I'll piggyback on that before we go to the last part of this. I feel like the reason we go through what we go through is exactly what you said. At some point in time, you're going to reach this space where you're like, oh my God, like you're at the top of the mountain, you look down, you're like, wow, I went through all that. And as you're turning around to look down the mountain and go, man, I went through all that, there's other people at the bottom of that mountain. And I'm getting chills saying this. And now, as you turn around, you realize you have the tools needed to help those people come to the top of the mountain with you. And I really think that at the depth of sharing our story, that's what we come to that point where, like, oh my God, I can take this and I can help somebody else now. And that's why I think this is such a pivotal thing, the sharing of stories. And there's so much other to it, but at that point, I mean, that's how you help somebody. If you come on here and you say, listen, this is how I got through this, somebody else is going, okay. Or maybe, maybe a woman gets on the show and she's been through a similar situation in her marriage and she's like, God, do I leave? Do I stay? And she goes through that, because I went through that. Like, do I leave? Do I stay? Like, oh my God, we have kids. And something you say goes, no, listen, I need to leave. Save a woman from living a story that's not meant for her. So yeah, this was definitely like one of my favorite episodes. I'm like, oh my God. And I'll piggyback one more thing before I ask you the last two questions. And I said don't ask questions, but there's just a few I ask. I read a Maya Angelou quote last night, and I can't state it word for word, but it says there is nothing more tragic than, it's like going to your grave or something, having bared an untold story. Right? So, you guys share your story.
Yeah.
All right. So 3.
That hit me in the feels.
And that's good. That's always, I find that getting into that space is actually always a place for reflection for us. I mean, if anything, and it's a reminder that we don't have to live there anymore. We get that active choice to continue moving on and asking ourselves, okay, well, I'm revisiting it. So what's there for me, but 3 pieces. What if you were coming across a woman and she said, my God, you've been through all this stuff. What are the 3 pieces of advice you could give me to help me get through what I'm going through?
Don't be afraid to share. Like, be honest and be open. I had one. It was at the tip of my tongue. Oh, keep going, no matter what. Wake up, just even if it's 1 centimeter that you go forward, that makes the difference. Just 1% better every day, 1%. And know that you can be that pearl. You can be the shining diamond. You're meant to shine. You're meant to have purpose. And your story isn't done. You're the author. You're the author of your own story.
Oh my God, I love it. Make that a quote. I think that's beautiful. I love that you are the author of your own story. You really are. And Angela, it was just weird. She said, that's horrible what you went through. I'm so sorry. And I'll say something on that. It really is. I wouldn't ever downplay what anyone's gone through. And I really, like I said, I commend you for so courageously sharing that, because that is not an easy thing to share. Any of what you share is not easy, but like I always hope to point out, when we show that we have chosen to heal through these pains, we show somebody else that it's possible, and we show them that we light a path for them to start on their own healing. So, yeah, so it is horrible what we go through sometimes. But I firmly believe there is purpose in all of it. Like you said, like, I haven't gone through all this to not have a purpose. Like, there's a reason. And now look at what you're doing for other women, helping them recognize that there's purpose in everything that they do, and they are purpose incarnate. I think that's another thing I listened to before we get off here. It's like, you are the entirety of the universe in physical form. And I think if we can take just a moment every day to remind someone that they are the entirety of the universe in physical form, then I think we're all living in our purpose, right? So sometimes you are that one person through the day, right? Talk about the one woman, helping the one woman. Sometimes you're that one woman. Sometimes you got to get up, look in the mirror, and go, you are the entirety the universe, physical form, even if you don't feel like it, but you are.
Right.
But all right, because we're at the end. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Where did that go? My goodness.
I know, right? I'm like, when I started the show, I was like, man, is an hour going to be too long? I just wonder. And I've always realized an hour is never long enough, but I always feel like 90 minutes would just kill it. So everybody be like, all right, we're done. All right. So tell everybody on the flip side, how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to get a hold of you? And how can they work with you if they choose to connect and want to work with you?
Well, local to me. So if you're in the Winnipeg and surrounding area, Manitoba, I run a local women's group. So we do like women's social activities. I can definitely get you involved in some of that. Extended from there, best way is look me up on my website, which is angiesinclair.ca, or find me on Facebook. That's my main social media. And my business page there is Shell to Shine with the number 2, or Angie Sinclair on.
Yeah, your tag doesn't.
Yeah, so I'll get all that on there. But I do one-to-one consulting sessions. I offer free discovery calls. I have a free free calendar scheduler as well. So calendly.com/shell2shine. I can put all that, tag it in as well. But that's the main way to get in touch with me, as far as getting a dedicated time to chat. If you're going through the thought of separation, divorce, it doesn't matter how long you've been in those situations. Sometimes it can be 6-10 years, but there's still something that feels stuck within you. That just means that something's not resolved yet. And you may have felt like you've talked it out till you're blue in the face, but sometimes it's that one different perspective that can make that difference. So I would be happy to share my shoulder with you and listen with a kind, compassionate ear. All of my space is zero judgment. I've laid enough judgment on myself that I certainly will never place any judgment on anybody else.
And I'll say one thing before you're off here. I hope we all can come to a space where we release judgment on anything and anybody. I think the world is, and you know what, I'm just as guilty on it. I won't say I'm perfect. But I think the world has enough judgment in it. And I think if more of us can come together and offer the space to just allow people to be, allow people to own all pieces of their story and be like, listen, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a lot of shit. If we can give them that space, I think that's how we're going to begin healing.
Absolutely.
So
150%.
All right. I knew there was a reason I did a really long meditation before this. I was like, I feel like I need to meditate before we get on. But thank you so much. Like, really, thank you for that, and thank you for everybody who came on, who watched that, and thank you for being here. I hope at some point that I get the opportunity to see anybody who watches the show, to see you share your story. Thank you, Angie, for coming on. That story was that was awesome. I feel like I'm gonna go after here and just lay here and just feel. I don't want to feel.
That's a lot.
You know what? But that's okay. I think the reason, and I'm gonna say this very loosely because I don't want to downplay anybody. I think that the reason that there's such a spike in the mental health of people these days is because we do have a lot going on. But what we're not doing is coping with it. We're shoving it down, right? So you talk back about your family and not coping. We're not coping with the shit. And so we have to learn to embrace the story, cope with our shit, you guys. Otherwise, it's going to, that is going to be the stake at which you burn. That's like the weirdest metaphor ever, but it's going to be the stake at which you burn. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you don't learn to cope with it, it's going to cope with you, and that's not good.
I've said that A lot of times. A lot. Yeah.
I just think that, and that's a whole nother story, but so I won't go to, but thank you guys so much. If you catch this on the replay, put hashtag replay. Let me know what you guys thought. And y'all reach out to Angie. She's tagged in this. Yeah, feel free to drop comments, your comments in here after that. And just thank you guys so much for being here as always. And all right, and I will see you guys. I can't think for a second. As always, this Thursday coming up, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys, YouTube or Facebook. I just want to keep seeing this show go so I can give this platform for you guys to keep coming up and sharing your story. As long as I'm alive, I think that's my purpose at the core, is just to help women find their voice and share their story, and realize that for all the many ways that the world tells you something is wrong with you, I come in and tell you, no, you're fine. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. You just got a really, really good story. So, all right, you guys. See you guys this Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys for being here. Much love, y'all. Bye.